The fog hung low over London's docks in the 1890s, a gray veil that swallowed secrets whole. Out of it stepped a man with no past, or too many pasts to count. He called himself Sidney Riley, though the name was just one of many he'd wore like a borrowed coat. His eyes carried the weight of untold stories, his voice a polyglot's lilt that could charm or command. This wasn't just another immigrant seeking fortune. This was a force of nature, a storm in human form, ready to bend empires to his will. Sidney Riley wasn't born a spy. He forged himself into one, and in doing so, he may have carved the mold for the world's most famous fictional agent, James Bond. Step into his shadow, and let's unravel the man who lived a life too wild for even the boldest novel. Our story begins, or rather, refuses to begin, in any clear way. Sidney George Riley claimed he was born on March 24, 1874, in Odessa, then part of the Russian Empire. But was he? Some say he was Sigmund Georgievich Rosenblum, the son of a Jewish doctor or a Polish landowner's mistress. Others whisper he reinvented himself entirely, shedding his origins like a snake sheds its skin. What's certain is that by the 1890s, this man, whoever he was, washed up in London, a city ripe for reinvention. He arrived speaking multiple languages, wielding charm like a weapon, and carrying secrets no one could pin down. Was he fleeing a scandal, a murder, his own family? The truth is a kaleidoscope. Turn it, and the picture changes. In London, Riley allegedly married a wealthy widow, Margaret Thomas, in 1898, shortly after her husband's suspicious death. Gossip swirled. Had Riley poisoned the man to secure his fortune? No evidence stuck, but the whispers clung to him like damp fog. With Margaret's money, he transformed himself again, polished, urbane, a man of means. He adopted the name Sidney Riley, a nod to his Irish heritage, another likely fabrication, and set his sights on a bigger stage. The British Secret Service took notice. Here was a man who could lie with a smile, who could vanish into a crowd or charm a diplomat's secrets loose over brandy. They didn't just recruit him, they unleashed him. Riley's career as a spy began in earnest at the turn of the 20th century, during the height of the Great Game, the shadowy rivalry between Britain and Russia for control of Central Asia. Posing as a timber merchant, he infiltrated the oil-rich Caucasus, mapping Russian defenses and whispering intelligence back to London. But Riley wasn't content to play a bit part. In 1904, as the Russo-Japanese War loomed, he surfaced in Port Arthur, Manchuria, disguised as a German arms dealer. Legend has it he stole the Russian naval plans and sold them to the Japanese, tipping the scales of war, all while pocketing a fortune for himself. It happened. The files are murky, but the audacity fits the man. World War I thrust Riley into even deeper waters. By 1918, he was in Moscow, a British agent in the heart of Bolshevik Russia, plotting to overthrow Lenin himself, known as the Lockhart Plot. This scheme saw Riley and diplomat Robert Bruce Lockhart conspire with anti-Bolshevik factions to arrest the Soviet leadership. Riley reportedly walked into the Kremlin, bold as brass, scouting the terrain. The plan collapsed. Betrayed or botched, no one sure, and Riley barely escaped, slipping across borders as the Cheka, Lenin's secret police, hunted him. The Bolsheviks sentenced him to death in absentia, but Riley was already gone, a ghost in their grasp. They called him the Ace of Spies, a nickname earned through a career that blurred fact and fable. In Germany, he reportedly seduced the wife of a naval officer to steal submarine blueprints. In Persia, he posed as a priest to broker oil deals. He juggled aliases: George Bergman, Sigmund Rosenblum, Konstantin Markovich, each a new mask for a new mission. His personal life was just as tangled: multiple marriages, countless lovers, and a trail of broken hearts and empty bank accounts. Riley didn't just live dangerously, he thrived on it. But what sets Riley apart from other spies is his flair, the theatricality that feels ripped from a Hollywood script. Picture him, impeccably dressed, sipping champagne, spinning tales of daring do, all while plotting his next move. It's no wonder Ian Fleming, a naval intelligence officer during World War II, might have heard his legend. Fleming's James Bond, suave, ruthless, a lone wolf with a taste for danger, echoes Riley in ways too striking to ignore. The gadgets and glamour may be fiction's polish, but the core? That's Riley, a man who lived as if the world were his chessboard. Every gambler's luck runs out eventually, and Riley's end came in 1925. Obsessed with toppling the Bolsheviks, he fell for a trap set by the OGPU, successor to the Cheka. Lured back to Russia by a fake anti-Bolshevik group, the Trust, he crossed the border, believing he'd ignite a revolution. Instead, he vanished into the Soviet maw. Official reports say he was interrogated and shot on November 5, 1925, in a forest near Moscow. But rumors persist. Did he defect? Escape again? Die years later in obscurity? His widow, Pepita, insisted he'd survived, but no proof emerged. Like everything else about Riley, his death is a question mark. So was Sidney Riley the real James Bond? Ian Fleming never confirmed it outright, but the breadcrumbs are there. Fleming worked in intelligence circles where Riley's name was whispered, a spy so infamous that Lenin himself cursed him. Bond's cool charisma, his borderless adventures, his knack for outwitting empires, it's all Riley, distilled into fiction. Yet Riley was Messier, darker, a rogue even his handlers couldn't fully control. Bond is the fantasy. Riley was the raw, unfiltered reality. What becomes of a man who lived as a phantom, a riddle wrapped in a lie? Sidney Riley's tale ends, or seems to, in 1925, when the Soviet OGPU lured him into their web with the Trust, a fake anti-Bolshevik resistance designed to trap dreamers like him. The official ledger marks his final chapter. Captured crossing the Finnish border, interrogated in the Lubyanka's grim cells, then executed on November 5th in a snow-dusted forest near Moscow. A bullet to the back of the head, a shallow grave, and the ace of spies was no more. At least, that's what they'd have us believe. But for a man who rewrote his own life with every breath, who danced through empires leaving only echoes, can we trust so simple a curtain call? The doubts creep in like a fog over the Thames. Pepita, his fierce widow, insisted he'd survived, that the Soviets hadn't snuffed out his flame so easily. She spoke of letters, of hints he'd slipped their grasp, perhaps a final disguise, a new name whispered in some distant corner of the world. Others murmur he turned traitor, striking a devil's bargain with the Bolsheviks to live as their shadow puppet. There's no proof, no body, no closure, just a void where answers should be. Even the OGPU's files, cracked open decades later, offer only fragments, a confession, a death date, but nothing to silence the skeptics. Did Riley, the ultimate gambler, play one last hand we'll never see? Step back, and the mystery deepens. This was a man who thrived on the edge of impossibility, stealing naval plans in Manchuria, strolling into the Kremlin with a death warrant on his head, seducing secrets from the wives of the powerful. His life was a script too bold for reality, yet he lived it, leaving behind a trail of aliases and half-truths. Is it so hard to imagine he cheated death one more time? Picture him in some smoky cafe in Istanbul, a gray-haired stranger with a knowing smirk, sipping vodka as the world spun on without him. Or perhaps he faded into the Siberian wilderness, a ghost among the pines, watching history unfold through eyes that had seen too much. And then there's James Bond, the polished phantom of Ian Fleming's imagination. Riley's shadow looms large over 007. The charm, the ruthlessness, the lone wolf bravado. Fleming, steeped in intelligence lore, surely knew of the ace of spies, a figure Lenin himself branded an enemy of the revolution. Bond is the myth Riley might have written for himself, cleaner, grander, but rooted in the same restless soul. Yet where Bond resets with each adventure, Riley's story ends in ambiguity. a question mark etched in the frost of a Russian winter. Here, on February 21st, 2025, a century past his supposed exit, Sidney Riley remains a cipher. Was he a hero undone by hubris, a villain redeemed by daring, or simply a man who refused the script fate handed him? His grave, if it exists, holds no answers, just silence. Maybe that's his final triumph, to vanish not into death, but into legend, a specter who haunts us still. Look closely at the edges of history, and you might catch a glimpse, a flicker of a man in a borrowed coat, stepping into the fog, gone before you can call his name.